Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Fiavi, and welcome again to my channel, Body and Mind Unplugged. Today, we are continuing part 2 of our discussion on acute stress. Last week, we had a brief discussion on what acute stress is and some of the long-term effects if it's not addressed on time or when it's not resolved. So today, we are going to continue this discussion and give you some insight about some of the signs and symptoms of acute stress disorder, when to seek help, and what to expect when you don't seek help. So joining me again today in the studio is Dr. Marin Onyalo. Doctor, thank you for joining me again today. So we had a discussion on acute stress disorder and what it is and how different it is from our normal day-to-day stress. We did mention that it's usually a traumatic event and usually geared towards sudden bad news. And whenever we experience acute stress, our fight or flight response kick in, which is our normal, natural, physiological response. However, when that lingers around and we are not able to get out of it, then it can be considered acute stress disorder, right?
Yes.
So, what are some of the signs and symptoms that people should look out for that they have acute stress disorder?
So, some of the symptoms that would be more prominent in majority of the people is gonna be increased anxiety.
Mm.
And anxiety is increased worriness, being or some people may experience trouble sleeping. Some people may have, I would say, increased distress because of what happened, so they are constantly feeling, in a
They're on the
distress
edge
mode,
all the
on
time.
the
They're
edge
easily
all the
triggered.
time. Yeah, so and then some people may have what we call avoidance. They try to either avoid the people, especially those who've been assaulted. They will try to either avoid the person who
Mm.
did the assault, or they try to avoid their peers in a way that they are suspecting that somebody else knows what happened to them, especially those people who have not been able to share what happened to them. So they will avoid other people, they will avoid the offender. Some people may experience nightmares because it there's a sense of trigger, like they could be sleeping and then the thing pops up and they start screaming from nowhere and nobody knows. So some people may experience nightmares. Some people may have increased irritation. They're easily irritated.
You
you
know,
know
I think I might have experienced acute stress in the last couple of weeks. I have experienced acute stress, and I do realize that communication from the source always triggers me.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think I must have experienced. I'm okay now, though. I'm over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some people will increase those irritations. Some people will have restlessness. Especially those who've been diagnosed with a terminal illness. It makes you anxious because you're trying to figure out what is the next cause, or what is the prognosis of this condition. Or those who've lost their loved ones, this level of increased anxiety. And then we also have people who tend to dissociate they have what we call emotional. They feel like emotionally detached to the point that they feel, you could be there, but I don't know how to put it.
So it's
You
like a
you are
defense mechanism. They're having to trying to have a defense blanket,
Yeah.
sort of like
So
I don't want to be associated with this particular thing that caused me so much pain. So if
mm-hmm,
I'm able to avoid or detach myself from it, then I won't be in so much pain
in
again.
so much pain.
Mm,
Or some people be numb to the incident.
no,
Or
right.
some people, there's that sometimes, like, you are present in the physical body, but you are absent in the mind.
That must be a very difficult situation. That
It
must be a
is.
very difficult position to be in.
Yeah, so sometimes somebody could be sitting there, and somebody's trying to talk to them, and they're like, okay, they look like they're listening, but in the real sense they are not, because the mind is not there.
So basically, it's not a good thing to even be detached, because if you're detached, you're not really, you might have, you might think you're not making yourself available for that experience again, but you're not fully healed.
You are not
And
fully
since you
in.
are not healed,
Mhm.
is developing into bigger chronic problems. Like
Yeah.
you said, if unresolved, it can
Mhm.
lead into high blood pressure, depression. Even some
Yeah.
people experience irritable bowel syndrome and a host of chronic
All sorts
medical
of,
problems.
like, it comes in the form of, I would say, GI symptoms. All of a sudden, you some people actually even lose appetite.
Wow. Wow.
Like, the food is there, but they don't have the appetite to eat, because their mind, the physical body and the physical and the mind have to be together for a functioning person, for things to work well, physically and psychologically. So we cannot assume that, I'm just stressed and my physical body is okay. Your physical body is suffering at the expense of your mind, because, like I always tell people, it's good. Not It's not like it's good, but it's better to have a cut in your arm or your leg or something than to have a cut in your brain
Mm,
or in your mind,
mm.
because you will not be able to sense what is happening anywhere else. So people will experience those detachment, reduced awareness, intrusive thoughts, or guilt. What could I have done? Is it my fault? We are human. So some things happens in life, especially, let's take an incident where your child has been assaulted, or whatever happened to your child, or your child got into accident or something. Then you tend to ask yourself several questions with no ending, and there's no actual answer, because you know you naturally go into a guilt mode. Could I have
You
done
know,
something different?
I really get what you're saying. It's very unfortunate because I met I know somebody who lost three family members to COVID. You know, the whole family went through this acute stage of COVID, but she lost three family members. Of course, that's a very traumatic experience. 5 years after the fact, she survived COVID, but she's still dealing with the aftermath of
Mhm.
um, the stress and the
Of
trauma
the
of losing family
incidents.
members, in addition to she dealing with diabetes that she developed due to COVID.
COVID.
Yes. So what do you tell people when should they seek help? When should they say, okay, this is more than a bad day, a bad week. I need to seek help.
So what I would suggest is, like, if you feel like anything that you cannot resolve on your own, it's good to seek alternative help. Maybe somebody just need to tell you how to do it different. Okay. Or, you know, you can see your primary care provider. You can talk to a psychologist, or just a friend. Some people have good friends that can help them maneuver through difficult situations in life. So you need the support. So the time to seek help is when you see that you are not your normal self. I think we tend to
You
wait
are just
too
in a
long.
survival mode.
You are in a survival mode, and you are trying to figure out everything by yourself. There's a
Mm.
reason why humans are social beings. If I can't resolve it myself, maybe I need to call my friend, my parent, or whatever, see if they have another alternative for me. So the diagnosis for acute stress disorder most of the time is subjective. I don't think we have a clear cut test to say,
Right.
okay, we're gonna do this test, and the result is gonna be positive or negative. Because these ones are lived experiences. What we have to do as clinicians, as providers, is to listen to the person to tell their story, and from their story you are able to come up with
A
objective.
treatment
So the
plan. Mm.
subjective and the objective assessment is able to tell you how to guide this person on ways to live their life, and come back to the normal self that they were prior to these incidences. So the usual treatments could be mostly psychoeducation and psychotherapy. Some individual may require, medication, but since acute stress tend to resolve on its own, but in a case where somebody is really in so much distress, then I think that would be a candidate for some kind of short-term medication.
Mm. That's a good one. That's a good one. Um, I know life happens. We don't have control over certain things that happen in our lives, but is there any way, is it possible to avoid acute stress?
There's some incidences that we can avoid acute stress, whatever is in your control. But there's some things that you can't avoid. So, like, you know,
Like tornado,
like natural
natural disaster.
disasters, it's mother nature, like they call it. It comes. You can't tell tornado, hold on, I have to pick my stuff. No, you can't do that. But or the whole town is flooded. you know so what happens to a situation where the residents of the town didn't have any other alternative where to go, and then they are caught up in it? So not only they are stressed about their lives, they are also stressed about the loss of property, possible loss of life, possible contracting a new disease or something like that. So some things, like if a child is assaulted, they can't they can't avoid it. So the goal is what we can avoid. Accidents do happen to all of us. Our people, your loved one may pass away. Can you avoid a loved one pass away? All of us will want to stop it if we could, but sometimes we can't. you know so I think the goal is to figure out how to maneuver through the stage of acute stress. How do we effectively manage the stresses that life brings us?
Wow. Thank you so much for that insight. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time again to call it a day. But I mean, this is a very interesting conversation, and I'm sure you pick up a thing or two from it. If you're going through acute stress, please do not just hold it in, because eventually it may only linger on and cause more problems. Seek help. Seek help whilst you can, because unresolved acute stress disorder will only end up giving you potentially chronic medical conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, irritable bowel syndrome, depression. You don't want to get to that stage. So there's help out there. Talk to your healthcare provider when you feel like your acute stress episodes are not resolved on its own. So until next time, don't forget to take care of yourself. Take care of your mind, body, and spirit. There's only one life to live. Subscribe to this channel and share with your family and friends. Have a blessed day. Bye bye.